Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much for attending today's seminar, and also thank Sherry to provide this opportunity. So for me to share my experience on high school chemistry learning. Dr. Ho, Moses Ho is not available today, so then I will be present, organize, host today's seminar. Okay, so if you have any questions, so feel free to put in the chat box, or we are going to have a Q&A session at the very end, so then we can have the direct conversation as well. So either way is okay. Okay. So now I'm going to start today's talk. So on the high school chemistry and the chemistry research. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, chemistry. We know that chemistry is a very important subject in high school education. So this belongs to one of the a basic education subject. So it's because chemistry is everywhere. So we are surrounded by the substance world. So especially, well, this is an important subject for the college applications. So especially for the high school students, and then this is definitely, it has the highest priority. So chemistry is required by many of the fields, so especially in the STEM, and also if a student want to go to a medical school, they also need to take chemistry class. So this is a hardcore required course for attending engineering school or study in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and also for future medical career. When students enter into the college, so chemistry is also a required courses for many of the disciplines. So basically, after taking chemistry class, students are supposed to get the gain a lot of a fundamental knowledge, help them to be success and thrive in their future STEM-oriented or the medical-oriented careers. Yeah, because during this process, students will be trained with a lot of critical thinking, problem solving skills. So all of these are very important. So as regard to the college applications, so this chemistry is also required by many of the top universities. So for example, here for the Princeton universities, and then they clearly state that the students need to, so if they are interested in engineering, and then they should have at least 2 years of laboratory science, so which including the physics and the chemistry. Well, I think this is a very normal requirement. And for a CMU, and then they have different requirements for College of Engineering and College of Computer Science. So, but no matter which discipline, which college, and then both of them will highly recommend the chemistry during the high school study. So, well, this is just an example, but from this requirement, well, actually, it's reflected the importance of the chemistry during the high school years. So now let's have a closer look at of which kind of the chemistry class is offered in high school. So typically, it can be divided into 3 different levels. So based on the difficulties. So the easiest one, the entry level, is the regular chemistry. So they provide, the regular chemistry provides the very basic chemistry knowledge. But unfortunately, this chemistry is not very challenging. So this just will provide kind of like chemistry literacy, and then for the common people. And the second one is honor chemistry. So usually honor chemistry has requirements for math. So usually students need to complete the Algebra 1 before they can take the honor chemistry. So this is because chemistry also related a lot of calculations, reasonings, and the calculations. So the necessary math skills is important. So usually honor students take honor chemistry in 9th or 10th grade, and then after like a 1 year honor chemistry, and then they can advance to AP chemistry in the following year. So this is a very typical pathway. So the highest level that provided by high school curriculum is AP chemistry. So usually students take AP chemistry at 10th or 11th grade, and AP chemistry is very challenging because this is equivalent to college level chemistry class, and then I'm also going to talking about that later. So this for the AP chemistry is provide very strict training on the critical thinking and the problem solving skills, and also the analytical skills, because students need to reasoning a lot of things. For the math requirement, it also has a higher requirement. So basically, yeah, students need to have the pretty solid math background, yeah, before they take the higher level of the chemistry class. So based on my experience working with high school students, and quite a lot of times I feel that students is okay with the chemistry part, chemistry knowledge. However, they make a mistake because of the math problems. So they can, for example, they are able to list the equations and then correctly. However, they cannot solve the equations correctly. So yeah, I hope that the student can mathematically prepared well before they can attend the chemistry class. So now let's have a closer look at the comparison between the different levels of the chemistry class, especially the honor chemistry and the AP chemistry. I think a majority of the students will take these two types of the chemistry class. So in terms of the scales and the difficulties, and then if we scale it as from 1 to 5, honor chemistry will cover the lower spectrum. So for example, 2, 3, but the AP chemistry will cover the higher end. So like the 4, 5. So this including the content. So the content will be taught during the class. So the AP chemistry will have the broader cover, and the depth also will be deeper, and it provides a lot of details, and then the problem also will be more difficult. And in terms of the analytical skills or the problem solving skills, after taking AP chemistry, will be more honed compared with taking the honor chemistry only. So because the difficulty is different and the challenge is different. So for the AP chemistry, well, actually it's now getting more and more important during the college applications. So especially in recent years, and then when the standard tests such as I don't know why this one. Okay, so when the standard, when college doesn't consider much of the standard test, like the SAT or ACT score. So in this case, the AP score will get more and more important during this decision-making process. So for the AP chemistry, for schools that using the weighted GPA, well, definitely it's going to carry the heavier weight, and so it provides the the benefit of plus during the college application. And when students enter into the college, for many colleges, well, actually they are going to take the AP class. Well, it has to be a good score, definitely, and then served as the college credit. So a lot of students, if they get like a 4 or 5 AP score, and then they can skip the equivalent class during the college years, so that they can directly enter into the higher level of the college to take a higher level of the college class. So yeah, usually the AP courses, for example, like AP chemistry, can be served as a prerequisite for taking some other level, higher level of the chemistry class. So then what does AP chemistry test? Well, based on the college board, it covers 6 big ideas, and all the knowledge divided into the 6 individual units. So it covers different aspects of the chemistry. So for example, starting from the very basic, the atoms, elements, periodical table, and then goes to the chemical bonding reactions and more complicated topics such as kinetics, thermodynamics, equilibrium. So all they fit all the knowledge point into the different unit. So, or yeah, in other words, features with different big ideas. So more specifically, so if we have a closer look at all the topics that are covered by AP chemistry, so then I list the major topics, not all of them, but most of them. So you can see that, we can see that the topics are actually pretty broad. So this class, AP chemistry, actually equivalent to general chemistry in college. So they have different names. In college, this one will be called general chemistry. Usually it's kind of like a chemistry 103, 104 kind of the class code. And this chemistry, the general chemistry, is a prerequisite for other higher level of the courses. So for example, if the student is in like a chemistry related major, for example, like a chemical engineering or material science or something like that, and then in order to take a higher level of the other class, the major related higher level class, and then students have to pass general chemistry. So this is a prerequisite for many other level, higher level of the courses. So it's just like build a scaffolding. So each of the class build on top of each other. So starting from the lower part, and then from the 100 level, 200 level, and the 300 level of the class. So yeah. So from the list, the topic, and then we can see that AP chemistry will actually cover pretty broad, broader topic and the content. So yeah, because of this reason, well, actually AP chemistry is challenging for many of the students. So there is a reason behind that. Okay, so now let's have a look at the closer look at of the College Board AP test. So the test date typically is in the beginning of May, very earlier. So chemistry always on the first, very beginning, first or the kind of the first or second test. So this year is on May 1st. So then I'm using this year's testing date as an example. So for the AP test, there are 2 sessions. The first session is a multiple choice. So starting from this year, students can use a calculator for both of sessions. So previously, students can only use calculator on session 2. Well, so this policy change will also indicate the session 1 multiple choice will involve more complicated mathematical calculations compared with previous years. So for session 1, it includes 60 questions, and the time is 90 minutes. and account for 50% of the total score. So from here, when we do a simple math, and then you can see that students needed to complete each of the questions by within like a 1.5 minutes, 1.5 minutes. So this requires students has a very, at least has a faster speed. So accuracy is the number one important, and equally important is the speed. So so now let's have a look at of what we can expect from the multiple choice sessions. So usually we have two types of the question. The first type is a single question. So it asks you a question and then have A, B, C, D choices, and then students can choose the correct answer. The second type of the question is based on the theme. So this include a group of the questions. So for example, they start from chemical reactions, and then they may list like 3 or 4 questions related with these chemical reactions, and then they all multiple choice, and then this will actually usually test the students' understanding of the statement or understanding of the problem from the different angles or different approaches. Yeah, so this is what we can typically find in the multiple choice question, the first sessions. And then the second session is the free response part. So for the free response, it also accounts for 50% of the total score. It contains 7 questions, and the total time is 1 hour and 45 minutes. So for these 7 questions, it divided into 2 types of the question, long question and shorter question. So for long questions, well, typically it starts with a common theme, and then usually in one long questions, it can including like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, a lot of smaller questions. So students are suggested to allocate about 15 to 20 minutes for each of the smaller questions. So again, they needed to work pretty fast to complete all these questions. And then for the shorter questions, shorter answer questions, well, it just means the question has fewer, for that topic, they have the fewer questions. So students are suggested to allocate like 7 to 10 minutes for each of these shorter answer questions. So for these questions, typically, based on the college board, they assess the 6 of the course skills. So for example, models and representations. So for example, interpret figures, read the graph, questions, methods, and representing data, phenomena, model analysis, mathematical, and argumentation. Well, so what does that mean? So now let's have a closer look at all the free response questions. So for the free response question, very commonly you can see some experimental oriented questions. So for example, they have a reaction setup, and then provide some of the procedures or provide some data, and then derive from this information, and then there are quite a lot of questions. So then in this case, students, I hope that if they have the picture in their mind on what's going on for these reactions, this will be very helpful to solve this type of the questions, the experiment-oriented or the lab-oriented types of the questions. And definitely for the free response, well, they provide partial credit. So then they are going to, the answers will be scored based on the accuracy and the relevance. So then in this case, well, actually, I highly suggest that the student has a good handwriting, because and then have a very neat presentation handwriting, and present their answers in the like a clearly and in a clear and logical way. This is something that we may want to. This is information that we may want to send to students. And also for some part of the questions, it requires the explanations. So basically, this is a writing skills. So the explanations will show the reasoning and the logical thinking of the students. And then for the calculations, I suggest that the students show the, for example, show the equations and show the method, and then complete solve the problem step by step. So do not skip, and then and also do not just provide the answers. So that is not suggested. So all these kind of the habits will need a practice during the regular chemistry study. So these are the basic skills and the fundamentals of how to present your ideas, your solutions, and communicate with other people. So during the exam, so how the students communicate with the grading teacher. So now let's have a look at the statistics of the AP Chemistry score distributions. So here I list the test result since 2016. So from this table, we can see that for the 5 and the 4, so basically 5 and 4 are the scores that we want to get. So typically, it's roughly like a less 30% overall. So majority of the students belongs to 3 to 1, the lower portions of the distribution. And for the students who attended this AP test during last year, so 2022. So we still don't have 2023 data yet. So for 2022, it's about 124,000 of the students. So roughly like 125,000 students. So you can see that a lot of students attending the AP Chemistry class. And I think because everyone knows this is important. But for the 5, so pretty consistently around 10%. Some year higher, some year lower. But pretty typically is like lower 10s. So for example, 11, 12%. So that is a percentage for the 5s. So from this data, we can also see that chemistry is a tough course, and this is one of the challenging courses that are very difficult to get a 5. So unlike some other courses, and much higher percentage students can get 5, but for chemistry, only roughly like a 10%. So then how to interpret the scores? So for 5, it's extremely well qualified, and then that corresponded to A in college grade. For 4, it's equivalent to A- to B level. So this is well qualified. So 3 is qualified, which means you pass the class. However, it's just a pass. So in order to be the credit to be considered, usually I think the college will require the AP score is 4 or 5. So they are going to take 4 or 5, and then lower one probably they would not like to consider. So in this case, which means first of all, we needed to take AP Chemistry class, take the test, and second of all, we needed to achieve like the high score at least like 4 or 5. So basically, this is a goal that we want to achieve. So then this is AP Chemistry, and now I'm going to move on to the next topic. So this is a computation. So computation will actually well, it's one of the pathway to boost the chances of the college application. So for the chemistry computation, so here that is offered by American Chemical Society. So that is the U.S. National Chemical Olympiad test. So it's abbreviated as USNCO. So for the computations, well, it has different levels. So the first level is a local test. So students need to pass the local test before advancing to the higher level of the national test. So it's kind of like a local test. Students will gain the eligibility or the qualification in order to attend the national test. So time-wise, the local test typically is held in March during the spring, and it only have the multiple choice questions, 60 multiple choice, and the time is 110 minutes. And for the qualification, well, actually this one pretty stringent. So it's based on school. So for each of the school, only the top 2 students can be qualified to move on to the next levels. So yeah, even though the score is high, but if you are not the top 2 of your school, and then, well, unfortunately, it cannot be advanced. So if the students can advance to the national test, the national test will be later in spring, later in spring, so typically in April. The format of the national test will be more complicated. So it including 3 parts. So the first part is a multiple choice. So still 60 questions, but the time is much shorter. So students only have 90 minutes. So the difficulties of the question will be harder. So national test will be harder than the local test. So from here, you can see that students will have harder questions, but shorter time. The second part is the free response questions. So 8 questions to be completed in 105 minutes. And the third part is a lab. So students needed to complete 2 lab questions. So usually, for example, like a qualitative analysis to identify some unknowns. So give students a bag of like the white powders and then find out what it is, some kind of like that one. So students need to hands-on. So they are provided with the basic lab supplies, equipment, and then they need to design an experiment, design the lab procedures, and then to complete the task. So 2 lab questions, and then has to be completed within 90 minutes. So after the national test, and then the very top 20 students will go to the camp. The high honors is the top 50s, and the honors will be the top 150s. So yeah, typically this is how the chemistry computation works. So in terms of the computation, well, actually, it is built on top of the AP chemistry. So many of the topics are overlapped and covered by chemistry, but it's harder. So it's the knowledge-wise is deeper, and the scope also wider. So for the computations, it's also including some of the topics that are not covered by AP chemistry. So for example, like a coordination chemistry, and also organic chemistry, and some of the biochemistry. So organic chemistry and biochemistry will be at the end of the multiple choice questions. So yeah, and also it requires more lab experiments and lab skills. So it's very common type of the question is to do the error analysis. So the students needed to, for example, reasoning. So for example, if there's something wrong with the experiment, and the students need to figure out what's the reason. So what kind of the reason lead to the errors. So this is quite like a unique types of the question that we can find during the computation problems. And in addition to that, the math skills and also the like a calculation type of the skills also required higher. So students are expected to have the higher capabilities, especially in terms of the calculations. So for the math skills, we are not going to using calculus, so not calculus levels, but a lot of complicated calculations, something like the exponent log or something like that will be frequently show up during the during the test. So now we will just come back and then how to prepare the AP chemistry, how to prepare and learn high school chemistry. So here I'm going to focus is on AP chemistry because I believe AP chemistry is the most relevant to most of the high school students. So then first of all is get prepared on math. So then the students may want to complete algebra 1 and 2. So because the knowledge learned in this class will be used in learning the chemistry. The second part, what I want to highlight here is understand, memorize, and analysis. So chemistry is a little bit different with other class like math or the physics. So chemistry requires a lot of memorization. So this is a kind of like biochemistry or the biology. So memorization is important because well, you need to know the facts. So know the formulas and know the equations. And then when it's up to time, so for example, when you need to solve the problem, and then all these facts, numbers should be just on your fingertips. So then students should have a very fast response. And the second of all, students need to understand. So for the memorization, even though we need a lot of memorization, however, most of them are not like a mechanical memorized. However, this memorization has to be built on top of understanding of the topic, and then understand what's going on behind the scene. And also, students need to be able to using the knowledge and then to perform the analysis. So for example, when they learn the ionic equations, so when they see one equation, and then they should be able to predict or be able to write a lot of many other similar equations. So so these are the like the basic skills that we're going to be trained during the AP chemistry class. Another thing is the lab. Probably this is one of the first class students will be very seriously trained on scientific writing, or they start to write something scientifically. So in the previous writings, so that may like write an essay, kind of like an English type of the writings. But for the lab report, this belongs to the different types of the writing. And in addition to this, in addition to understand and perform the analysis, and then practice is necessary. So same as all the other types of the skills, if you want to good, and then you need to practice. So for example, if you want to play piano well, and then you need to practice every day. So then if you want to excel in chemistry learning, and then you may want to practice pretty frequently. So read the books, do the exercise, and then review, discussion. So we'll basically practice, and practice. So in terms of the plan, the college, the class course plan, well, I feel that it's very critical because high school, there are only 4 years. So the application will actually occurs at the end of the third year, which means majority of your achievement, all the courses, especially the important courses, has to be complete before the summer of the 11th grade. So I think the planning is very critical for the entire college, entire high school years. This planning not only limited to chemistry, but limited to all the different courses. So then basically we want to use the time very sufficiently, and because there's not that much time can be wasted. So in this case, well, actually how to work efficiently is very critical. So here I just using the chemistry as an example, and I believe for other courses like the physics, biology, they also have the similar thing. So for example, let's say we aim to take the AP chemistry test. So that is a college board test, and then this is in May, and then we can design, or we can plan based on this timeline. So we backward. So AP chemistry is in May, and the competition is in March. So basically both of them are in spring. And the school chemistry typically is cover both fall semester and the spring semester. And then if you want to take AP chemistry, preferably the students already taken honor chemistry in the previous year. So then in this case, they kind of get prepared for taking the higher level of the class. But as I know, many of the students want to challenge themselves, and then they want to skip the honor and then go to AP courses directly. That's doable. At least I think for AP chemistry is doable. However, the students need to get prepared. So in order to succeed in this class, because our goal is to succeed in this class, and it's not just for taking this class and then taking this class. So that is not our goal. So our goal is we take this class and then we do it very well, and then preferably we can get a 4 or 5 in the AP test. So that's our goal. So for students who doesn't have any experience on the honor chemistry, well, actually the summer will be very critical. So then they have to get prepared. So otherwise it's going to be like a big jump. So very deep challenges. So I don't suggest to do that, because that probably very easily students will feel frustrated and lead to an undesirable outcome. So get prepared, so which means students may want to use the summer before the school year that he or she want to take the AP chemistry class. So during the summer, well, at least they needed to read the books and then get familiar with the topics. So then what's going to be covered by the AP chemistry and what's going on, and for some basic things, and then they start to learning. So yeah, so basically get prepared and then to accept the challenges. So yeah, this is a timeline. So typically, if the student learn it very well, prepared well, and then during the school, and then they learn well, and then usually they should be okay, get pretty good AP results. So that is based on my experience working with students in Bay Area, in Silicon Valley. Yeah, so the next part is scientific research. well, research previously is mainly limited in the graduate school, so it's kind of like a privilege for the graduate students, PhD students, or master students. But in the past especially past 1 decade, so in the college, we're actually this is a trend, and then to introducing the research into the undergraduate students, and in recent years, and then even high school students participate in the scientific research. So usually those are the very top high school students. So for the scientific research, well, actually, if we look at this figure, looks like a pyramid. So this is a very famous figure among the educators. So this is called the Bloom's taxonomy. So then what's the goal of the education? So in the college, and then we educate people, and then what kind of the people we want to cultivate for the future. So we really want students learn, and then after learn, and then they are able to create something new, and then to so this is a force to advance the technology and the knowledge and the technology. So basically, we are kind of like a ladder, or we provide a shoulder for the future giant. So the most critical skills, or on the very top of the pyramid, is creating the skills that are able to creating something new that really promote and advance the knowledge. So how this can be realized? Well, usually this is through the research. So the nature of the research is to solve the problems that still facing human beings, and then make our create something that make the world better, or solve the existing problems. So actually that's an essential part for the higher education, and then that actually is concentrated during the scientific research. So for the undergraduate level of the research, nowadays in the universities or colleges, so there are many programs are available. For example, like the undergraduate research program, the centered research program, and also it's a trend to encourage integrate research into curriculum. So for example, like a research-based curriculum teaching. So for how to select students to participate the scientific research. So usually at the end of the first year, and then we are going to see the students, because they have already been here 1 year, and then they have their performance, and then basically the top students will be selected to paired with the research group or the research program. So they are going to start with some like a basic research training, and then stay in the program for 2 or 3 years. So by the time when they enter like senior year, and then they should be able to very familiar with the research methodology, and we also expect the students can achieve some certain kind of the result and outcome achievements. So a successful research experience is a very wonderful experience for undergrad students, and then this is also a stepstone to the graduate school, especially if the students want to go to like a PhD program, or want to go to like the MD, the medical school. So these are research-based, especially the research-based medical. So these are the very critical experience. So the research will significantly enhance their probability be accepted by the top university and top programs. So here we'll probably I do a little bit sharing a little bit of information here about how to select the talent in the higher education environment. So, well, basically, this generally applies to different levels. So we focus on two aspects: intellectual merit and broader impact. So intellectual merit, which means, well, the intelligence and the intellectual contributions. So in terms of the students, so for example, like a high school student is for example, GPA, the grade, the test score. So this is a result of the intellectual merit. And then the second part is a broader impact. So then, which means how your work will positively impact the society, impact the community. So for high school students, and then this is related as extracurricular activities. So for example, you do the volunteer work and then help the community. So this is a kind of the impact. And then for quite a few colleges and in their application essays, and then they ask, how do you change the world after you graduate? Or similar kind of the questions. Well, this is talking about the broader impact. So this is for the high school level, but for the undergrad student has an undergrad as a student, undergraduate student levels requirement, and then for the graduate student has graduate student levels of the requirement, but similar, and then they can be classified into these two broader topic. So when we prepare for the high school students, and then so we may also want to focus on these two aspects. Yeah, so this is a little bit to add on something else. So now let's come back, and then for the high school research. So typically for the high quality research, high school students, so yeah, we have really very outstanding high school students, and then they have a lot of achievement. So I saw quite a lot of this kind of the students. So then they could attend competitions. So we also have the research oriented competitions. So they can do presentations on the conference, and also write a journal paper as a co-author. So there are many ways to demonstrate their capabilities during the research. So for the high school student, California high school student, will actually, they have a lot of opportunities, so very fortunate. So for example, one of the very famous and common one is the Cosmos. So probably many parents here already know this. So this is the California State Summer School for Mathematics and Science. So this is hosted by UC colleges. So we have different colleges. So the link I provided here is by the UC Davis, but other colleges also have the similar programs. So for application of the Cosmos, typically is in early spring. So every year the time will be different, but in general it's in January to February. So yeah, that is the general timeline. So if you have a student in like the 9th grade or 10th grade, so be very careful about the deadlines. So you do not want to miss this deadline. Another one is like a SIP program, the Science Internship Program. So this is by UC Santa Cruz. So this application also in spring, so it's in March, a little bit later, but it's yeah. So everything has to be all the application has to be submitted yeah in earlier or mid spring if the students want to participate in a research program for the summer. So summer is a good time to hone the like the research experience and the skills. So yeah, the next one, yeah. So the remaining part is what I want to talking about, the reading and writing, the scientific reading and writing. So this also a little bit like adds on. So since a lot of students are interested in research, well, actually the scientific reading and writing are a very essential skills that they may want to practice as well. So because usually, no matter which kind of the scientific research you want to do, the first thing is to do we call it literature research. So which means you need to find the relevant paper, and then read the papers, and then summarize the knowledge, identify the problems, and then think about the solutions. So all these are the very critical skills. So in the college, so for the graduate students, usually we give them a lot of research papers to read. So I believe many of you have the graduate experience in graduate school, especially when you are like a PhD student. So you must read a lot of papers, right? So scientific reading and writing are extremely important. So at the college levels, so students is going to have a lot of reading and writing assignments. So even though they are like a science major, or so for example, chemistry major, so they are going to read a lot of research papers, reviews, books, and also need to write a lot of something like a lab report, term paper, project paper, or whatever. So then, so then in this case, the students may also want to practice their skills on scientific writing. So not the regular writing, but more specifically the scientific writing, scientific reading and writing. So there are a different way to do that. So in the curriculum, in many schools' curriculum, where unfortunately there are also a gap between the regular education, between the regular reading, writing, and the scientific reading and writing. So if there's any chances, so probably students can think about how to improve them in this aspect. So yeah, so this is a little bit something that for your information as well. Okay, yeah. So I already talked quite a lot. So so now I'm going to stop here and then leave the sessions to Q&A. So then I'm going to answer. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions asked by our audience. Okay, so now let me go over the question here. Okay, so now I scroll scroll up and then see the questions. Do you have the Do you have the stats of qualifying score for national test for our local school? Well, actually, for the computation, it's kind of like a compete with within the school. So because only the top 2 students in one school can be selected to advance to the national level. So it's not the absolute grade, absolute